So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. As per then Yirmiyahu the prophet, we find in the time of restoration of the cities laid waste for many centuries, and then the time of reduction, where we find in Yirmiyahu the 24th chapter. During this time where the nations are then readjusting themselves because of the time of transition from the 1,000 years of deceit back into the truth prior of the autumn feast, we find many sections explained then by the politician Daniel, the diplomat Daniel, the tradesperson Daniel. We find many areas where then Daniel explains the time of the end. The second chapter explains the kingdoms being divided. So then let's try to understand what then Daniel the prophet is explaining regarding this end of times, because we must consider the very end of the understanding as tabernacling himself coming from heaven and striking then the statue. So then it states in the second chapter, a section of it, where it states, "And as what you saw, then the base and the toes shall be partially of clay and partially of iron. The kingdoms shall be divided, but there shall be in it, would be in them the strength of iron, because you saw the iron mixed with clay of the clay mount. And as the toes and the base were partially of iron, partially of clay, so the kingdoms shall be partially strong and partially fragile." You have to understand kingdoms and not kingdom. What we have to understand is this. This understanding is related with the time of the end. Particularly we find then the restoration period. The time of the deceit is another area. We know for sure when then the head of gold was then Babylon, and then there was the silver, and then there was the bronze, and then was the iron, and then the kingdoms were divided. Understandable. As far as tabernacling is concerned, there is a period of time where tabernacle then, or tabernacling, is inexistent, doesn't exist. So we must not mix these with the kingdom to come government and the kingdoms of the earth or the nations. The only section of it related with it is when then the rock comes from the heaven and strikes then the statue. The kingdom of heaven is then depicted as after people going to and fro. So we must understand and clarify this area, because we can't mix them. This layer of understanding of second chapter of Daniel is related with the 12th chapter. And many people would go to and fro. To and fro is confusion, 1,000 years of deceit. When you read the second chapter, the kingdoms would be divided, because you can't divide tabernacling. So what is explaining is then the understanding of the nations. When you want to understand the kingdom to come government, it is obviously after going to and fro the 1,000 years of deceit, and then the returning of the holy cities layered with Yirmiyahu the 61st chapter. So then, with this understanding, we find then in the 12th chapter, then the very angel of heaven explaining, at the moment then seal the understanding. until the time of the autumn feast. This is what he explains. He explains the regular translation until the end of time. It's not end of time. You don't use end of time in the language of the Creator. You have to understand what it means at the end. What does it mean? Autumn feast. Otherwise, a person then, outside of the whole understanding of Jerusalem, the holy city, and then speaking of the time of the end, then the mind of the person drifts away from the instructions. What has Leviticus taught us? The 23rd chapter of Leviticus, from the 23rd verse through the 44th verse, is the autumn feast. So there is no time of the end. There is a time for the autumn feast. So then, what is it going to be taking place very shortly, the next 36 months? Couple of situations, very important. We understand there is a Chinese system coming. There is no doubt about it. In terms of the understanding of it, you find then the banking system being linked up. Then you find, that was absolutely the giver, the mortgage system. You must not purchase items or then systems where you know the deal is a piece of junk. You have to have a complete system, a working system, 100%, where you place your entire country's financial lining up in order for you to go around and buying junky deals. You know, buying mortgage systems, it's not very simple. You have to abide by the laws of the land, you have to abide by the local laws, you have to abide then by the rights of the people, and then the financial institution is extremely complicated. You only purchase those systems when you know for sure at some point they won't exist. And your system being superior, you take those subsystems and you adapt very quickly. Then later you find the Swift company. Not only then the Bank of China and Citigroup, but then HSBC Bank, also very famous throughout the world, is already linked up with the system. This is what then the Prophet Daniel is explaining. There is another section of it. We understand Germany is in trouble. They got themselves mixed up with the Eurozone. It must break. And they have 36 months to get out of the Eurozone. What is it taking place? At the moment, since the Chinese system is not yet revealed, what is it going to be like in the future, the next 36 months? If we don't take action as Americans, if we don't tax our people in our systems and financial institutions instantly, must have a record of 100% of what belongs to the government. If we don't do this, if we don't produce more energy, and if we don't refurbish our industry, as we understand, most of the technological areas and improvements of industry made equipment, made what we know of the past, compacted and very complicated. You can't nearly fix your car anymore. It is so compact and complicated, you have to take to the dealer. If you buy a radio these days, you can't fix it. If you scratch your head and stick your finger in the board, you burn the radio. So as being smart Americans as we used to be, how can we revitalize our industry? We make it simple and serviceable. The market is mostly compact and complicated. We make it simple and spacious. Then we revitalize our industry, so then we do what we used to do in the past, so we can come out of this crisis. But this can be done only when taxation comes first. Real-time taxation system, every time there is a purchase, instantly the funding goes to the computers of the government. As far as Germany, what is going to take place in the next 36 months? As we understand, when the Chinese system is then available via downloading in your computer, what is it going to be of Europe? Well, they are linked up with the same system, are they not? The euro is linked up amongst themselves. The Chinese system is an overseas system. People downloading their computers. Then the deal with Germany and the other nations, since some nations are weak, some nations are strong. Then Germany has injected so much of their funding amongst the other nations. Do you think Germany is going to receive back those fundings? No. Those are lost. When the system of the Chinese becomes available, they're going to log on and whatsoever funding the nations linked up with euro they're going to invest in the Chinese system. What is that going to cause? An imbalance in their own system. Not with the Chinese. The Chinese is not interested in any kind of other subsystems. But evaluating from the Chinese viewpoint, you have then Germany very strong with lots of resources, and you have the same system of Germany then linked up with other junkie nations. What is the normal? Is making sure then the subsystem is equalized. The junkie nations are going to invest whatsoever they have in the Chinese system. What is it going to render the junkie countries as far as their services? It's going to be a piece of junk. They are not going to invest in their countries. They're going to let Germany and the rich nations then provide them to make sure then the services are at least doable or serviceable. It's going to take the riches of the rich countries of Europe or the Eurozone, the rich countries, they have to give to those who are not strong. They stabilize the system, so then when they make deals, at least the services, for instance, the roads, having electricity, having then fuel, gasoline stations, they have to have those services, but those junkie countries, they are not going to invest on those. They are going to purposely junk out the system so then they can get help from the subsystems of their own, while they themselves are investing 100% and receiving the money, because euro is going to become a subsystem. And there is no regulation with the Chinese system as far as we understand. So then when we read Galah or Revelation, then we understand every nation doing trade with China. Then we understand kingdoms shall to be divided. And there is only a system then available. As far as the leadership of the market of the trade of the end, it's revealed. The other subsystems, they're going to be only stabilized. And those who are rich, they have to give to those who are then not rich. So Germany has 36 months to get out of this Eurozone. For whatsoever riches they have is going to be then given to the others. Because the spirit of the world is going to change. Is going to be geared towards trade. So from the Chinese perspective, they are making deals amongst the nations. They don't care if the nations are in bad shape or not. What they want are deals. But then they find an imbalance of their own systems. since they're going to be so powerful, you can understand. They're going to try to stabilize the system. Whosoever is rich over there amongst themselves, they have to give, because the other junky nations, they are not going to do it. How can you force a nation not to invest in your system? But we can do it in such a way that we can improve their own systems via somebody else. It's not even your own money. Of course a person would do. So Germany has a very huge predicament. And we understand they are trying then to get the leadership of their own, because the gold deposits from our country in France, they are being removed. There was an article a couple of months ago regarding the entire golden deposits. Let's make sure Germany is smart, because if they are thinking in reinforcing then the euro, then they have to level with the others. Yet they are going to be weak, because Germany is not going to get back these investments of their own. Because it's not advantageous for those countries in trouble. They are going to get the funding, but they're going to invest in the Chinese system. The Chinese is not part of the Eurozone or their deals or their regulations, or where they visit over there, where they get together and try, to force other countries to be more this than the other. They are not part of it. As far as the United Kingdom, it doesn't take much to understand they're going to be divided. Those nations that were for so long united, there is no reason for it anymore. Because then Daniel said the kingdoms shall be divided. So we can expect Lady Elizabeth having a huge shifting going on with her kingdom, because her children, they have grown up already. They can do the work themselves. So we can expect a lot of changes coming in the next 36 months, as per then what the prophets have told us. These are no news. Only the time came for the explanation and the expansion of these understandings. So then we are doing what the angel said: leave those understandings for the time of the end. But the angel already said it before. Those are no news. We decided to scandalize ourselves. That's why the situation is so bad. So then the nations, they have a lot of work to do. And make sure to get yourself a worthy copy of the scripture.